you been here before? So today, we're going to have our resident team of glassblowers working. They work for the museum. They're super talented. And we're going to be making some designs using a technique called Murrine. It's basically, we'll make our designs as little mosaics. Can we put up the Murrine chop chop? So we're going to we've made some rods that have a design that goes all the way through. Then we take little slices we make these rods that have the designs that go all the way through, and then we chop them up, and each little slice has the same design. It's like a little mosaic tile. We lay out the design in these little mosaic tiles, fuse them together, roll them up into a tube, close it, and then we have a blown glass thing with a little mosaic design in it. So let me just give you a very brief introduction to how glass blowing works. Everything that we do starts out in our glass furnaces. The glass furnaces are the ones where you see the square hole in the steel wall and the doors closed. Behind those doors, there's a big ceramic tank, and in those ceramic tanks, there's 1,000 pounds of molten glass. We keep that molten glass at 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit, and at that temperature, the glass has the consistency of honey. So if you can imagine a giant crock pot full of honey, that's what our glass furnace is like. If you look up on the, oops. So if you see the man in red shirt, that's Gabe. He just took that steel pipe and he dipped it in the molten glass. So that glowing orange thing on the end, that's the molten glass. The steel pipe in his hand is called the blowpipe. He's going to blow air through that pipe into the little ball of glass. It's going to blow up like a balloon. Do you guys have any questions so far? So all the glass that's in our furnaces is clear, has no color. It's like this. We buy our colored glass separately in the form of these bars. We buy it like an artist buys paint. We buy red, yellow, blue, pink, purple. We blow a bubble of clear glass from our furnace. We heat up a chunk of whatever color we want it to be, and then we melt a layer of colored glass over the clear glass. We then dip that in more clear glass. So what you end up with is something that looks colored, but if you cut through it, you would see it's just that one skinny layer of color. So Gabe, in the red shirt, has blown a bubble of clear glass. Sayuri, in the gray shirt, is melting on a little colored glass. So Gabe is going to push that back until it entirely coats the initial bubble, and then we'll dip it in more clear glass. So it's really only a lining of color. Now, in a big factory where you're going to make 1,000 things, they're all going to be the same color, then you just melt a big tank of colored glass and dip into it. But here we're a bunch of artsy-fartsies, and we want to make a red thing, then a purple thing, then a blue thing. So we color pieces individually by melting on a layer of colored glass. If you've seen the glass by Dale Chihuly up on the bridge, and all those things are colored in this manner by melting on a layer of colored glass. So Gabe is just going to shape that up on the steel table. He's going to let it cool a bit and stiffen, and then we're going to coat it with another layer of clear molten glass. Do you guys have any questions? So we dip it in, blow a little bubble, let it harden. Again, put more glass on it. Then when we get all the glass we need to make whatever size object we're making, then we blow it up like a balloon. And then we're going to have a Murrine pattern in the middle, which is the kind of mosaic. Each time we dip it into our big tank of molten glass and add another layer, it's called taking a gather, G-A-T-H-E-R. Each time we take a gather, we've got to round it out, make it nice and even. So right now we're just accumulating all the glass we need to make the object. The tool in Gabe's hand, Gabe is the man in the red shirt, it's called the block, B-L-O-C-K. It's made out of wood, stored in a bucket of water. As long as the wood itself is wet, the tool doesn't burn, nor does it leave any marks as he shapes the glass. The tool looks like a scoop, but we don't scoop up any water in it. We use it empty. We just want the wood itself to be wet. So the vase that we're making is going to have 3 parts. The bubble that we're blowing right now, we're going to cut it in half. One part will be the top, one part will be the bottom, and then we're going to make a fancy mosaic pattern for the middle. Oh, we're doing another project in this kiln, and he's got to reach into that kiln, which is probably 1,200 degrees. So he's got a fireproof suit on made of Kevlar. So Sarah, crouched down to the left of the bench. She's the person that's blowing. She's blowing through the steel tube and inflating the glass while Gabe, sitting at the bench, shapes it. The gray pad in Gabe's hand is just folded up ordinary newspaper soaked in water. As long as the newspaper is wet, the paper doesn't burn, nor does it leave any marks as we shape the glass. Well, it burns a little, but not too much. So we want to have, we use this bubble for two separate parts. So you can see Gabe is squeezing it in the middle, making a notch where he'll break the two parts. Tool in his hand that he's squeezing the glass with, it's called the jacks. And when we make a notch in the glass like that, it's called jacking it down. There's two ways in which we heat up the glass. Sometimes we heat it up in the big round oven. Sometimes we heat it up with a torch. When you heat it up with a torch like he's doing now, it allows him to focus the heat in a particular place. When we put it in the big round oven, it kind of heats up the whole object. When he uses the torch, he can get just the part he wants, hot and soft, hot and soft. So we're getting ready to break it in half. Ben, in dark blue shirt, has brought a second pipe called the punty, and that's going to act as a temporary handle to hold the half after we break it off. So Ben will clean that one up, do a little shaping, and then we'll store it in this oven over here. This is called the garage. We call it the garage because that's where we park stuff until we're ready to use it. Operates about half the temperature of the furnaces. It's hot enough to keep the glass from breaking, but it's not so hot that it makes it soft. So whatever goes in there stays warm, retains its shape. We're ready to use it. We'll pull it out, heat it up a little extra, and stick the parts together. So Sarah, in the gray shirt, has our Murrine pattern, our mosaic pattern. She's going to put it in the garage and warm it up. in the center. Gabe is widening the opening. We're going to join 3 parts. So this vase is made of 3 sections. One section will be the bottom, one section will be the top, and the third section will be made with the Murrine pattern, the mosaic pattern that's sitting in that oven. Over on the right, Ben in the red and white hat is shaping up our part. When we join different hollow bubbles of different colors and designs, it's called incalmo, I-N-C-A-L-M-O. So we've made the top and the bottom. Those bubbles are sitting here in this oven, staying warm. We're getting ready to make the middle part. Look over here on this table. You can see we've laid out some of our mosaic patterns, our Murrine patterns. So each of these patterns is made up of little chips. We make a long rod that has a pattern going all the way through it. We chop it up. We use these as little almost mosaic tiles. If you think about it, it's kind of like making sushi. Make a big roll, chop it up, all the pieces of sushi look alike. Anybody have any questions? So in the center, Sarah in the gray shirt is heating up our Murrine pattern. The oven that she's heating it up in is called the Glory Hole. It has no glass in it. It's just a big brick barrel with a gas burner in the side. We just use it to heat up glass while we're working with it. Do you guys have any questions? Okay. (2,300 degrees Fahrenheit). About 6.5 times what it takes to cook a turkey. So Ben is giving our pattern a little bit of a squeeze. When we get the little Murrine hot, they get soft and a little bit sticky. And we squeeze them together so it makes essentially a pattern sheet. So in order to turn this sheet into a three-dimensional object, we're going to do what's called a Murrine pickup. Can we put up the Murrine pickup with the collar? So if you look up on the big screen, we have a little drawing. So Gabe in the red shirt is making the part marked collar. In the center, we're heating up the Murrine pattern, the mosaic design, it says in that slide. And we're going to use Gabe's collar to roll that sheet into a tube, close the end of the tube, and then we'll have our pattern bubble. Boo. Ooh, that wasn't supposed to happen. The ceramic plate on which we had laid the pattern cracked. So we're going to have to try again. Equipment failure. These guys didn't do anything wrong. So we have several patterns laid out. So we're going to warm up another one. So we're going to start again. We're going to make another colored bubble because that bubble is the wrong color for the next pattern. So we're going to make another bubble, cut it in half, put a different pattern in it. Over on the right, Nick, our technician, is filling the furnace with glass. We call it charging the furnace. So Gabe in his red shirt, starting the next bubble. He's going to roll that glass on the steel table, roll it into a cylindrical shape, and then blow just a tiny puff of air into the tube, close it up with his thumb, and the heat from the glass itself will expand the air and blow the first bubble. Call that capping, and that's the way we start almost every hollow object that we make. So Gabe is going to push the molten glass, the colored glass, back till it entirely coats his original bubble. So now Gabe in the red shirt, he's going to coat his bubble with another layer of clear molten glass. Behind that door, there's a big ceramic tank. In that ceramic tank is 1,000 pounds of molten glass. Each time we dip it in, then we've got to round it out, make it nice and even. If we see any bubbles in there that we don't want, at this point when it's thick and gooey, we can physically yank them out and cut them off. Murrine example. Make a long rod, pattern that goes all the way through. And we chop it up. And we make what looks a little, essentially like little mosaic tiles. Yeah. You think of it like making sushi. A big roll, chop it up all in little pieces. Look the same. So our pattern, we can make it in any. Our pattern is laid out on a round plate. You can see on the Can we put up the shot of the table with the Murrine patterns? No, the patterns. The ones on the actual table. We're gonna. Does anybody have any questions? Put the thing in the fire, make it soft, squeeze it, stretch it. Hot glass sticks to hot glass, so it's kind of like hot wax sticks to hot wax. So So Kristen, our cold worker, has just brought out some examples of similar types of things. So you can see here's our mosaic pattern, our Murrine pattern. And here's a section that we added in Como. So the ones we're making today, they're going to have a transparent section here, a transparent section on the bottom, and they'll have a pattern in the middle. These only have two sections. We had a little mishap earlier this morning. We had our mosaic pattern laid out on a ceramic shelf like this. We were heating it up, and the shelf itself cracked. We managed to save the mosaic tiles. That's what they're checking out on the metal table. The people working on the floor today are our Museum of Glass Hot Shop team. They're a resident team of glass blowers. In the red shirt at the center bench is Gabe Feenan. Assisting him in the gray shirt is Sayuri Fukuda. The man in the dark blue shirt is Nick Davis. Over on the far left, Sarah Gilbert in the shorts. And Ben Cobb, tall guy, dark blue shirt, red and white hat. Oh, and Kristen Elliott in the apron. Anybody have any questions? So we're making some vases similar, not to this style here. We made, these have 2 parts. The ones we're making right now are going to have 3 parts. So we'll have a transparent colored section on the top, one on the bottom, and then the mosaic section in the middle. We've made the 2 top and bottom. They're sitting in that silver oven over there, staying warm. Now we're about to pick up the mosaic section. We call it Murrine. You can see we've laid out a pattern on this ceramic shelf. We're about to heat up a different pattern. Sarah in the gray shirt at the center workstation. She's got the pattern for our next piece. It's sitting on a ceramic plate. It's made up of the little Murrine tiles. And we're going to heat it up, soften it, and squeeze them till they all stick together. You guys have any questions? No? I've tried to find that out, and I've never been able to. No, we buy it. We get 50-pound bags of these and we shovel them into the furnace, cook them overnight, get all the bubbles out, and then next morning it's ready to use. When we make these mosaic patterns, it's called Murrine, M-U-R-R-I-N-E. We're heating up our mosaic pattern till it gets a little bit soft and sticky. We're giving it a little bit of squeeze so all the little tiles stick together. sir. There's two kinds of furnaces. The round ones with the doors open are called glory holes. Those run at 2300 degrees. The ones with the doors closed, those are the glass furnaces. Those run at 2100. So once we get our pattern fused together properly, we're going to do what's called a Murrine pickup. Can we put up the drawing? So if you look up on the big screen, we're going to coat a pipe with a ring of glass. That's what we call the collar. And we're going to roll our pattern up into a little tube. We'll make sure that's clean. And then we're going to bring the two sides together. So we have a little video where you can see how we make the Murrine. The little mosaic tile. So if you look up on the big screen, we make a rod with a pattern in it, stretch it out, cut it up into smaller, more manageable sections. And we chop it up into each individual Murrine or a little mosaic tile. So in the center, Ben is bringing the two sides of our Murrine pattern together. You guys have any questions? Bet you have a question. It's good. Keeps me busy. Keeps me out of trouble. Yes, sir. Yeah. Whatever color we start with, that's the color it's going to be when we're done. When we're working with it, it gets hot, and what you see is the orange glow of the heat. But that's going to disappear. It's like when if you look at an electric stove, the burners are gray. When you turn them on to cook something, they get hot, they glow orange for a little while, turn them off, they cool down, they go back to being gray. So whatever colored glass we start with, it's going to be that same color when we're done. This is only to make the pattern. You guys have any questions? Well, when we make what's called cane, which is basically rods of colored glass we use for stripes, instead of you use them in little pencil-sized sections. Instead of making each one, we draw out a rod that's maybe 30, 40 feet long, and then we cut that up into the little sections. So when we draw out that rod, we let it rest on these ladders so it cools evenly. Do you guys have any questions? Yes. So in the bubble that Gabe's working, we have a kind of mosaic pattern. It's called Murrine. It's a technique which dates back to 1st, 2nd century BC. Can we put up the Roman Murrine bowl? So they made long rods. Each of them had that little like flower-like decoration going through the middle. They chopped it up, made a pattern just like we did, and then made it into a bowl. Hot glass sticks to hot glass. You get the top, bottom of this hot, top of this hot. When you press them together, they treat it like wax. This is a hot wax. You press them together, it would stick. When we lay out our mosaic patterns, we paint a release called kiln wash onto the shelf. Occasionally, little bits of that release get stuck in the glass. When they do, at this point, we grind them out so they're not there permanently. So Gabe in the red shirt has a little Dremel tool. If he sees anything stuck to the glass where he doesn't want it, we'll grind that out before we continue. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah, those things. We're going to make a tall vase with 3 sections, one with instead of 2 like that. So there'll be another section on the bottom of a transparent color. So right now we're making the middle section, the one with the mosaic pattern. That's a pattern for a next one. Sarah is dripping a little molten glass onto the steel table. She's making a little pad of glass we call a cookie. We're going to use that to close up the end of our pattern tube. So now we have a closed volume. We have something we can blow. There's no hole in the end anymore. Well, we paint a release onto the ceramic plate where we heat up the little mosaic tile. Sometimes some of that release sticks to the glass itself. If it does, we take that little Dremel tool and grind off the debris, or schmutz, as we say. So Sarah, the woman crouched down to the left, she's the one that's blowing. So you can see the pattern, but the colors are distorted by the heat. I think they're... So we're going to coat this bubble, the pattern bubble, with another layer of clear molten glass. Anybody have any questions? For those of you who came in a little later, these are our Museum of Glass Hot Shop team. They work for the museum. They have an average of 20 years glass blowing experience. Team today is being led by Gabe Feenan. Gabe is the man in the red shirt. So we dipped it into our tank of clear molten glass. Each time we dip it in and coat it, it's called taking a gather, G-A-T-H-E-R. So we'll round it out a little bit, make it nice and even. The tool in his hand that he's shaping it with is called the block, B-L-O-C-K. It's made out of wood. It's stored in a bucket of water. As long as the wood itself is wet, the tool doesn't burn, nor does it leave any marks as he shapes the glass. So in the center, Sarah in the gray shirt, crouched down to the left. She's the person that's blowing. She's blowing through the steel tube, the blowpipe, and inflating the glass while Gabe, sitting at the bench, shapes it. Have any questions? So the vase that we're making is going to be similar in style to the ones that you see here. these have 2 sections. The one we're making now is going to have 3 sections. So it'll have a transparent colored section on the top, a mosaic section in the middle, and then another transparent section on the bottom. We've made the 2 transparent sections. They're sitting in this oven over here staying warm. Once we get this guy squared away, we'll start attaching them. So Sarah is blowing. Sarah's in the gray shirt on the left. Gabe is shaping the glass using a pad of ordinary newspaper soaked in water. As long as the newspaper is wet, the paper doesn't burn, nor does it leave any marks as he shapes the glass. So now Gabe, in the center in the red shirt, is squeezing the glass, making a sharp notch in it. That sharp notch is the place where we'll be able to break the glass away from the metal pipe once we're done shaping. The tool in his hand that he's squeezing it with is called the jacks, and when we make that sharp notch, it's called jacking it down. Regular old newspaper. Questions, sir? Good. So we're going to poke a little hole in the bottom of that bubble. We're going to widen that opening, and that'll be the lower part of the middle section. So we're going to Jay? So we're making these out of several separate bubbles. Can we put up the Incalmo? We're going to join the sections together. Can we put up the Incalmo multiple section slide? So in this, for this piece, we're going to only have 3 sections. We're making the sections with different colors, different patterns, and we're joining them together. So you can see they end up looking similar to this, where there's a section, and then it's attached to another section of a different color, a different pattern. So over on the far left, Ben in the bright blue shirt has the section we want to join. Gabe has the middle section here in the red shirt. We're going to heat the 2 things up and stick them together. When we stick 2 sections together like that, it's called Incalmo, I-N-C-A-L-M-O. So Gabe is checking the size. We want the opening on this one to be the same as the opening on this one, so they connect even. So here comes the section we want to add. This is a tricky maneuver. Once the 2 things touch, they're stuck forever. So you got to get it in one shot, or else. No, all the colors you're seeing are distorted by the heat. Reds are the funniest ones. Reds, when they're super hot, they look orange. When they're kind of medium hot, they look brown. And when they're kind of hot, they look black. And when they cool off, they go back to being red. So the next thing we're going to do is transfer the glass from the rod it's on now to a second steel rod called the punty. The second steel rod will hold it from the bottom while we shape the top. So it's kind of more like this. So the bottom has the transparent colored part. We've got the mosaic part on top of that. We're going to grab it from underneath, and then we're going to add another transparent part on the other end. I don't know if any of that made any sense, but. So Ben on the far left will prepare the punty, the second steel rod. That's going to act as a handle. He'll bring it over to Gabe. Gabe will stick it on the bottom, and then we'll break the glass off the original pipe. So Gabe's going to scratch a little circle on the base so he knows where the center is. That'll just mark the center, and then when we heat that up again, the little scratch will disappear. So we're attaching the punty now. Once Gabe feels that that bond is strong enough, he'll take a pair of tweezers, dip them in water, drip a few drops of water where he wants the glass to break, and then a light tap on the metal rod will release it. So here he goes. He drips some water onto the glass. A little tap, and off it goes. Now it's held from the bottom. Top is exposed. Top can be heated and shaped. Does anybody have any questions? Have any questions? Good. So Gabe is shaping the glass using a pad of wet newspaper. His assistant Sayuri is holding a wooden paddle in front of his arm to shield him from the heat. The heat that comes off the glass is radiant heat, kind of like an outdoor heater. It heats the first thing it strikes. So if you put the paddle between the arm and the glass, the paddle gets hot and the arm doesn't. So Gabe's going to widen the opening at the top. He's going to make it approximately the same diameter as the third section. Over on the far left, Sarah Gilbert, in the gray shirt, is heating up the final section, which is going to go on top. So this technique of joining different pattern, different colored sections together is called incalmo. Can we put up the joining incalmo slide? So if you look up there, we have a little diagram. You can join as many sections of different colors or patterns, whatever you want, to get your design. We do it when we want to have a very distinct division between the colors or patterns. Thank you. So here comes Sarah with the final section. This is a tricky move. You got to heat up the glass so it's soft enough so the two parts stick, but you can't get it so soft that it goes out around. Plus you're turning it, so that shot where you join two together is pretty tricky. And once the two pieces touch each other, they're stuck. That's it. So you got to get it on the first try. One of the glass blowers is blowing into the front end. The tool in her hand is called the soffietto. It's from the Italian verb soffiare, to blow. So it means little puffer, little blower. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Oh. How much does it weigh? £8, maybe? I'm just guessing. 8 pounds? I'm not holding it, so I can't tell, but probably weighs a little bit more than those two, because it's got 3 sections instead of 2. So we're going to puff it out a little more. Sayuri in the gray shirt and black leggings. She's got the Soffietto, a little puffer. When we finish an object like this, we can't just set it on a table and let it cool on its own. If we did that, it would cool too quickly and unevenly it would shatter. So each day we heat up our annealing ovens. Our annealing ovens are the big black ovens at the opposite ends of the studio. They're electric ovens. We heat them up to 920 degrees. We place all the objects that we make during the day in there, and then at night we cool everything down all at once. The ovens have little computerized thermostats, so we can automatically set it for 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever period of time we want. The longer, the thicker, and more complicated the object, the longer we take to cool it. Well, they're all artists in their own personal lives. Today they're at work making these things. Gabe is leading the team, so he's the guy in charge for the moment. But they're all very capable artists. But this is their day job. They're at work. They're not making their own creations. We put up some of Gabe's work up on the big screen. So if you look up on the big screen, you'll see some examples of Gabe's personal designs. So that's what he makes when he's not at work. And Gabe shows his work at the Vetri Gallery in Seattle, Washington, and at the Duncan McClellan Gallery in Florida. His name is Gabe Feenan, F-E-E-N-A-N. mosaic pattern, assemble. Top and the bottom, and then a little square pattern. Comes out of our big tank. Working at the vent in front of the machine. Patterns in there all the time. The color you see was determined by the heat. Whatever color starts with that certain color will have that. You can make it any way you want. So we're getting ready to remove the glass from the metal rod. We'll drip a little water on the joint between the metal pole and the vase itself. The water will crack that joint. A light tap will release it. And into our annealing oven to cool slowly overnight. So let's have a hand from Museum of Glass Hot Shop team, Gabe Feenan, Ben Cobb, Sarah Gilbert, and Sayuri Fukuda. When we make cane, this is what we call cane, and we use it to, we melt it into other pieces of glass to make stripes. We use them in this sort of pencil-sized section, but when we make them, we draw out a rod that's maybe 40 feet long, and we let it cool on these wooden ladders. We're going to do that in a few minutes. And then when it's cool, we chop it up into the little sections. So basically, we're making stripes. Cane. Cane is the official name, but we use them to make stripes in glass. Yeah, we're going to do it in a few minutes. Yeah, we're, I don't know, 5 minutes away from it. Well, if it's rough or we leave a little piece of glass on there, we mechanically grind it and polish it. We use a tool called the glass lathe. Do we have the cold working video? We haven't shown this in a long time. I'm not sure if they still have it in the computer. Do we have a cold working? I'll just show that. It's got Connor. It shows the glass lathe, and it's got a little. So we're getting ready to do what's called pulling cane. We're making these skinny rods called cane that we're going to use as stripes. So each one of these is going to become a stripe in one of the finished pieces. We make a big thick one. We attach it to another piece of glass, and then we stretch it along these ladders. So we get a big skinny rod that's maybe 40 feet long, and then we'll cut it up into little sections, and this is the length that we use them at. So all these stripes you see here were once one of these. I'll show you in a minute. I'll show you in a minute how that happens. So here we go. We attach the glass to another steel rod called the post. And then they're going to slowly walk apart. When they get the glass stretched out to the proper diameter, then they'll stop, hold it in the air for a minute, let it stiffen up, and then gently rest it down on the wooden ladders. This is called pulling cane, C-A-N-E, just like a cane that you walk on. So they're going to hold it in the air for a minute, let it stiffen up, so we don't get a flat spot when we lay it down. And once they feel that it's stiff enough, we'll rest it on the wooden ladders, break off the two ends. Asking me about how they space out the stripes. Can we put up a spacing cane drawing? So if you look up on the big screen, these rods have color running through the middle and clear around it. When we melt them together, the clear glass automatically spaces the lines. Can you see that? That becomes the bottle. Yes, we may. Well, to get that design is called Reticello. It's a classical Venetian design. We'll blow 2 bubbles. Can we put up the Reticello all in one? Just black glass or white glass, whatever color we want the stripe to be. The medium. Oh, the colors of glass come mostly from metals dissolved in the glass when you first cook it up. Not all the colorants are metals, but most of them are. Cobalt makes glass blue, chromium makes it green. Black is a combination of nickel, cobalt, iron, and manganese. called Murrine. You guys have any questions? Stroking your beard? You guys have any questions? They're called cane, and we use them to make stripes and other pieces of glass. So we're basically manufacturing stripes. And instead of, we use them like this, they're sort of the size of a pencil. But instead of making each one, we make a big pencil-sized section. 2,300 degrees. What? 6.5 times what it takes to cook a turkey. Yep. Do you have any questions now? What? Well, you're going to have to speak a little louder. I can't hear you. Yes. Well, the tool itself is made out of wood. So we keep it we store it in a bucket of water. As long as the wood itself is wet, the tool doesn't burn and it doesn't leave any marks as we shape the glass. There is steam coming off. The tool looks like a scoop. We don't scoop up any water in it. We use it empty. We just want the wood to be damp. And whatever water is on the wood just turns to steam. It's usually made out of some kind of fruit wood, apple, pear, cherry. Here in the Northwest, we make a lot of them out of cherry. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, we'll probably take lunch about 10, 15 minutes. He's making Murrine rods, which making rods like this that have a pattern in them that'll get cut up into individual tiles, and then we'll use the tiles to make fancy patterns. They're called Murrine. It's a ancient technique, goes back to Roman times, 1st, 2nd century BC. Murrine, M-U-R-R-I-N-E. If you look at that big picture up on the big screen, that's a Murrine bowl. That dates maybe 1st, 2nd century BC. Oh, he wants the color to fold over in the middle. He's going to fold it up a bunch of times, and it'll make a pattern. See if we have something that looks like it here. If you can see it, it's a little bit small. There's color on the outside, and then it's folded over several times. Yeah. Wood. Yep. Glass furnaces ran on wood from about 50 BC till about 1650, 1700. And they used wood in Murrine, in near the island where they make the glass off of Venice. They used it up until the 1950s. So in the front of the studio, we have Sarah and Ben, and they're doing what's called pulling cane. They're drawing out a rod of colored glass, and we're going to eventually cut that rod up into smaller rods, and we'll use those to make stripes in other pieces of glass. So each individual rod is called a cane. And when you make a big long one like that, it's called pulling cane. You can make them in any color. We can make them simple. We can make them fancy. Over on the far right, we're going to stretch out our Murrine rod. You'll see Gabe hand the pipe to Sayuri, who's standing on the ramp. And when we make these Murrine rods, we like to pull them vertically instead of horizontally. So Gabe will break that into smaller sections. And then we'll put those sections into our annealing oven to cool slowly overnight and relieve any stress. So Gabe will take his you can see how hot those rods are. They're burning the wooden ladders. He's got Kevlar gloves on. Kevlar's an insulating material. And he'll stick them in our annealing oven where they'll cool slowly overnight, and that'll relieve the stress. So that concludes our demonstrations for this morning. We're going to take an hour lunch. We'll be back in an hour. Yeah, let's have a hand for Museum of Glass Hot Shop team. See you guys in an hour. Jay, did you go to lunch? Are you still up there? If you are, can we show the all-in-one Reticello slide? Okay, if you, sir, in the orange jacket. So if you look up on the big screen, that explains how we make the fancy bowl. So we make two bubbles, one with the stripes twisted to the right, one with the stripes twisted to the left. We blow one inside the other. All the stripes crisscross, and at each intersection, if you look at the drawing in the lower right-hand corner, it traps a little air at each intersection. When you heat that up, each one of those becomes a little bubble, and you get the pattern in the upper right-hand corner. Thanks, Jay.